This is the Voice of Wichita Falls.
And welcome to the Voice of Wichita Falls. I'm Mike Hendren, and this week in the studio with me, our very special guest is MSU President Dr. Suzanne Shipley. Suzanne, how are you?
I'm super duper. How are you?
Very good. And yes, she told me I could call her Suzanne before anybody gets in a panic on me here.
We're going to have massive call-ins about that.
It's a pleasure to have you. This is the first time I've had you on the air, and
you'll want me back.
Well, I hope so. Everyone has told me that I've talked to said you're a very nice person, and you're a great interview, and a wonderful person to talk to, and that you're very, very invested in Midwestern State University.
That is correct.
So,
thank you.
Let's just start right here. I'd like you to tell people a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you came to MSU.
Well, I grew up in Lubbock, Texas, where my father was in radio and television. He and Dub Rogers owned the first CBS affiliate, KDUB, in Lubbock.
Really? Okay.
Then he went on into radio and then ultimately became a consultant in management. And I grew up fascinated with languages. It was during the Sputnik era, and my brother was a big science nerd, and I was into Spanish, Russian, and German. Ended up with a PhD in German. Not a lot you can do with that other than teach on the college level, but it made a good life for me, and I got attracted to administrative stuff early and made my way through the ranks and ended up as a president at a university on the East Coast called Shepherd University in West Virginia. And Shepherd is a sister university to Midwestern State because we're a public liberal arts university, and so is Shepherd. And so when the presidential opening came up, it was the only job I applied for. I applied for it. I wanted to get closer to my mom. She was in her 90s. Mm-hmm. And the match was made. We just liked each other, the university, and I liked the place. I liked Wichita Falls. So my husband and 2 dogs moved into the Sykes house, 8,000 square feet for 4 human and animal beings, and the rest is history.
There you go. Well, so far, I take it your experience with Midwestern has been a positive one.
It's totally positive.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk a little bit about MSU's role in the community. How do you view the school's role as a member of the community?
I think we're really a cornerstone of the community. When we talked a little earlier about growth, I think that like Wichita Falls, we've been stuck at a single number. So Wichita Falls has been around 100,000 for a long time. We can't seem to get much past 6,000, 6,200 students, and we try every year to inch that up 2, 3, 4, 5%. And so what we've become completely focused on for this next year is growth. And we have a goal that the Regents support and that the campus supports to grow by 8% a year for the next 5 years, so that by 2024-25, we are at 8,000 students. So we'd like to add 2,000 students to our population. And we think that our growth can propel growth in Wichita Falls.
Yeah.
So those 2,000 students will come in part from the campus that we now have in Flower Mound. So we have tried to kind of claim the land between Wichita Falls and Fort Worth. And so you'll see us in partnering with NCTC, with Wise County. But now we've leased a building in Flower Mound right next to Louisville.
Right.
And we're offering classes for working adults. And you'll say, well, how the heck does that help Wichita Falls? Well, it helps Wichita Falls not because we're taking our residential students, our traditional age students, but because we're reaching out to a new audience. Those people know people who can also come to Wichita Falls.
Right.
We've rebranded ourselves, MSU Texas, to tell people where the heck we are.
Yeah.
Because by the time you said Midwestern State University in Wichita, they think you're in Kansas.
You're right.
And you can barely get Wichita Falls, Texas in, so we just say MSU Texas.
Right.
And so we're just hoping that spurs growth. We think we'll grow by about 1,000 students there.
Yeah.
And about 1,000 here, but 500 online and 500 in person, which means we've got plenty of capacity to add 10% to what we do in Wichita Falls.
Yeah. I mean, what's been the roadblock to getting this done before, you think? I mean, how is what you're doing now differ from what's been done in the past?
Well, I think a lot of the growth in Texas institutions is urban growth. And the rural areas are not growing at the same extent that urban areas are growing.
Right.
But I think the biggest hurdle has been lack of identity recognition, name brand recognition.
Yeah.
And so our name didn't help position us, and we probably, well, I know for sure we didn't put enough into advertising, into marketing, and so we're adding positions in marketing. We're doing a lot in social media.
Yeah.
You'll see more billboards. You'll see a lot of work around social media and advertising through social media. And so I think just getting a lot smarter about getting our name out there and having the right program. So the education we offer is the most expensive public education you can offer. It's residential and it's small class sizes. Mm-hmm. So it costs the students a bit more and it costs us a bit more. When you move into the more for-profit sector like we're doing with adult ed, it's a lot more affordable.
Yeah. Well, and I really am kind of surprised that the student growth has been so slow.
I mean, when you look at how gorgeous the campus is and how special we are, and the other thing is we're just the right distance from a major metropolitan area because students love to go away an hour and a half, just long enough to get out of the house, but close enough where if they need to go home on the weekend or go home all of a sudden, they can.
Sure.
So we're positioned perfectly to snag that growth that you're seeing in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Well, and claiming that space between here and Fort Worth, I think
it's really important.
It is. I think it's smart.
You look at what Tarleton has done. What Tarleton did is they worked out from Stephenville towards southern Fort Worth. Mm-hmm. We're trying to work out from Wichita Falls toward northern Fort Worth, and we're closer to Dallas than they are. Mm-hmm. So they're creating a whole campus. We just have a site.
Right.
But they started with sites. So the way we're doing this is by co-locating with community colleges because they've got a set population. So our building is right next to NCTC. They have 2,000 students.
Right.
Those students might want to keep going.
Right.
And so it's just a smart thing to do. We're going to Tarrant County Community College tomorrow to see if we can have offices and classroom space in their beautiful downtown campus. And they're welcoming us with open arms for a conversation about that. So you just have to be smart about it.
Yeah, that is good. That's good news for you.
And a lot of those community college students want to complete a 4-year degree, if not on that campus, then somewhere else, and that could be Wichita Falls.
Right. Are you seeing more students, what we used to call traditional students, were the students coming right out of high school, 18, 19 years old, and then you had your non-traditional students, which in my day, if you were over 25, you were considered non-traditional. I don't know if that definition has changed or not. But are you seeing more of a traditional student growth or non-traditional student growth locally at Midwestern State?
Well, we have always had, surprisingly, a good non-traditional base. We've been very welcoming to adult learners, people whose careers took off or their family took off and they couldn't complete a degree.
Right.
They've always been able to come back and take our degree called the BAAS, which is the Bachelor of Applied Science, and they've done that.
Yeah.
But that is the norm now rather than the exception. Uh-huh. So you get a lot more transfer students now, a lot more adult students, but we still are probably the premier residential campus in Texas. We are just the place. If I were a student, I would want to come and live on campus here in Wichita Falls. We really work at that.
It's funny. We were talking at a meeting this week about MSU hosting the Dallas Cowboys training camp.
That was a while ago. Yeah, I'm sorry I missed that.
Over 20 years ago now.
Yeah.
And that was quite an experience.
Yes.
And we saw kind of there was this blooming of life on campus.
You got a bounce from it.
We did get a bounce from it. Mm-hmm. And it lasted for a few years.
Yes.
And I was surprised at how long it did last. And, you know, it was kind of it was an interesting time because I was a student there a few years before that and never would have imagined, you know, number one, that an NFL team would come here and use us as a training camp. And number two, that we would get the experience out of it that we got. And I think there were some things learned from it, too.
I'm sure.
Really, as well. We talked a little bit about the students and about the cost of the college. Student loan debt. I mean, This is a big topic right now and has been for a while. Students are coming out of college with a lot of debt sometimes. And they're spending years and years and years paying that off. I know I have friends that just in the last 5, 6, 7 years have paid off student loans from 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. And it becomes kind of a bit of a burden sometimes for some of these folks. You come out of college and maybe you're making $50,000 a year, maybe you're making $100,000 a year, but you've also got this loan that you now have to repay. In your view, as an administrator, as a university president, how do you see this student loan problem? Is it as big a problem as we think it is? Is it as burdensome as we think it is? Is it better? Is it worse? I mean, what's your view of the student loan debt situation?
Well, I think it could be even bigger than people assume, but I think that's where public universities play such an important role. So if you look at our average student debt, it's under $25,000. So you go to college, you end up with potentially, on average, $1 million more earning potential in your lifetime with a college degree. Yeah. You are less likely to be laid off. So if you go to a public college like us, the average debt would be closer to 30, 35. But if you go to a private college, I think you just have to be careful that you match your earning potential to the debt you incur. So I have a nephew who went to Baylor, took on a lot of debt, but he's working as an oil and gas attorney in Houston. It's not going to matter. He's going to pay that off. Right. But if he had accrued that debt and wanted to be in theater and dance in New York, he could have compiled debt over his lifetime. So what the federal government looks at is looking at more and more is what is your earning capacity in your major and matching that major with the price of your degree. Yeah. I'd say the other thing that a lot of us do, including the private institutions, is we really try to work on not just affordability, but grants. So we've put $250,000 a year into our scholarship since I've been here. So we made a concerted focus over the past 4 years that every class would have $250,000 more in it. And then we got a great grant from the Pretty Foundation for first-generation students that allows 30 students to go absolutely for free, live on campus, and study abroad. It's an amazing grant for first-generation students because they want to see, can we become a model for first-generation students? So I'd say my biggest worry as a president who's toward the end of her career instead of the beginning is that whole pricing piece, that whole affordability piece, because we are going to hit a ceiling where we can't keep even very small incrementally increasing tuition. We're going to have to stop increasing tuition at some point, and then I don't know how we're going to absorb inflation because we pay for more technology, we pay for salary increases, we pay for deferred maintenance on buildings, and so it's hard to not defer some of that cost onto students because the government will less and less support, has a tendency to have less and less supported higher ed. So when you went to college, I went to college, 80% of our tuition was paid by the state. Yeah. Our parents paid 20. Yeah. Most of us didn't pay that much. The parents paid more. Now it's absolutely flipped. Yeah. So the cost of attendance is 80% on you and 20% on the government. Yeah. And let me ask you, if you have guaranteed student loans and things like that, Pell Grants are still around. Yes. If these programs didn't exist, if these loans that were backed by the government didn't exist, if you couldn't get the student loan, you couldn't get the Pell Grant or whatever, if that money went away tomorrow, how do you think it would impact enrollment at MSU? Well, it would impact enrollment nationwide, and the reason those things exist is because in the 60s and 70s, we made a decision to democratize higher education. Mm-hmm. We tried to make higher education available to every student who was capable of achieving a college degree, regardless of class, of wealth. And so Pell is all about your family income and evening out the discrepancies that we have in socioeconomic factors. Right. And if that went away, then what we would have is what we used to have, which is if you have the money, you can have a degree. Mm-hmm. Now it's a whole different situation. MSU, there's been talk MSU football came back after a 30-year absence in 1987. I was at that first game after 30 years in 1987. Wow. Me and several family members went. It was elbow to elbow, jam-packed at Memorial Stadium, and it was beautiful. It was a great game. I still remember that experience. Did we win? All these years, I think we did. Good. But I still remember the experience, the feeling of it, and it was electric, if that's the right word to use. There was an energy in that place that night that was unbelievable. One of the things that I cannot understand is how a campus of our size, of our structure, we've got this big, beautiful place here, this big, beautiful school with a great history and no football stadium of our own. And I've heard rumors
and they've all turned out to be just rumors for the last 30 plus years about a stadium for Midwestern. Now, there's been more talk of that since you came on board as president. Are we any closer to reality for a stadium for MSU Texas?
Yes.
Okay. Well,
would you like some more detail on that?
That makes me smile. Give us the scoop. Tell us whatever you can reveal to us. What can we expect moving forward now?
When I was hired, it was very clear that the board expected me to raise money and to build a football stadium.
Yeah.
So we first looked at costs. And I have a buddy who's president at Angelo State, Brian May, wonderful guy, who had just built a stadium. Mm-hmm. He has contractors who go around the state building stadiums for high schools and colleges, but at a very affordable level.
Right.
So what I moved forward with was a plan to build a field and stands and add on later. We can do that. We have a plan to do that for somewhere between $12 and $15 million. So it doesn't bankrupt the institution. It's not a $30 million stadium, which would be very easy to do. Mm-hmm. We have places on campus that would be viable for a stadium, and we have contacted 6 different donors. Mm-hmm. We are in the final phases of a conversation with the primary donor. If the primary donor gives us the base for the fundraising to continue, we would like to have the stadium opening for our centennial year, which is the 21-22 season. If we could possibly do it a year earlier than that, that would be great. But that's probably how far off it is, because it's going to take, from the time that gift comes in, it's going to take several months to get the rest of the money.
Yeah.
It's going to take a year to design and build the stadium, and then you'd be ready to play. So you probably want to start it in the summer before it's ended in the summer, so the team can get out and practice on that field and get to know that field. So that's where we're at right now.
I just feel like having your own stadium.
We will invite you to the game when the stadium opens.
I will be honored to be there.
If there is a box, you can sit in my box, but I really prefer to be down and hearing the players smack each other and talk to each other.
If you can get me on the sidelines, that'd be even better.
You could be a guest coach.
All right. I feel like having a stadium.
I totally agree with you.
It adds a degree of legitimacy.
Well, it makes us a college town. So what it does.
Exactly.
I came from a place where the stadium was in the middle of the campus. And people say, oh, my gosh, you're paying $20 million for 5 games a year. It's nothing like that. You have band competitions there. Right. You can play another sport there if you want, lacrosse, soccer. You can do anything you want there. It's a facility. You can graduate there.
Right.
But what's so super cool is the band gets up, they march around campus, they get all the students up in the morning. You got tents up and down Taft. People are tailgating, and you got all this college town gown excitement. And then the game is a part of that, but it's really the whole community feel. You put banners downtown, you put banners everywhere, and you just go for it.
See, that's the other thing, too. I feel like having that will, it'll create a new energy in the community for MSU.
Mm-hmm.
It just will. And the fact that we've had football back now since 1987, and we're just now getting to this point.
But you know what's more important than that? We have a winning football tradition. So, we could have a $50 million stadium, and if you go watch us lose every week, so what? I mean, you've got to give Bill Maskell and his team a lot of credit for year after year that conference championship.
Right.
And someday it's going to go further beyond that. If Commerce can do it, doggone it, so can we.
Well, you can,
and, you've got soccer doing the same thing, and basketball has a tradition. We've got to get them turned in the right direction. But we've got some very high caliber sports on campus. You look at tennis, golf. I mean, we've had a national championship in golf, a female national champion, and this year we had a freshman go and be an individual winner. She didn't win the national championship, but she's on her way as a freshman. So we're feared in the Lone Star Conference, and we should talk a little bit about the Lone Star Conference if you're interested.
Well, let's do that. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, do you know that it's going to double in size?
I've heard rumors to the
Right.
effect.
So the presidents pass around the chair of the council, and this year I'm the council chair.
Okay.
And it's not any big honor. It's just I don't want to do it. You do it. So anyway, I work with the commissioner a lot, and so we have basically accepted several teams from the Heartland Conference, and then we announced this week that UT Tyler is going from Division III to Division II, and they're going to do it as part of the Lone Star Conference. So we will, 1 year from now, we will be a conference of 21 teams, and we will be the largest conference in Division II.
Wow.
And we're doing that in part to give us leagues so that we play a Northern Conference and a Southern Conference, because right now the travel is excruciating.
Yeah.
You go down to Kingsville, you go over to Western New Mexico, Silver City, and it's just a lot of travel. So if we cut the travel in half, it won't be a lot of savings, but it'll save a little bit.
Yeah. Well, it's a game changer, no pun intended.
It is. So PSAC, the Pennsylvania Conference, will be the second largest, and will be the best and the biggest.
I have no doubt about it. Well, you can tell by the performance of the sports teams on campus that the coaching staff, they're putting in the work. The players, they're putting in the work. You can see that. It's reflected in the results. They're putting in the work, and they're doing it year after year after year.
And some of them are doing that in the classroom, too.
Yes, some of them are.
So the challenge is to get more of them putting that work in on the other side of their life, and we're going to work on that.
You have a great academic history, too. Don't forget that.
That's in part why you see us playing in a high school stadium.
Yeah.
The whole tenor of our campus is academic rigor, academics first. So we have to be really careful not to spend a lot of money on athletics and not on academics, but we're spending a lot of
I've had a lot of family go through that school, and I had an aunt that attended there when it was Hardin Junior College.
Yes.
And what is now the Hardin building was all there was. It was just that building. And
now look at it.
Her stories about Prof. Edwards, a name I'm sure you've heard thrown around quite a bit. She had a lot of stories about Prof. Edwards.
Well, can we talk about buildings for a minute then?
Let's do that.
Because, you've said the word excitement about a dozen times. And I think you're saying that because you're feeling a need for us to be part of the generation of excitement that makes Wichita Falls kind of turn the corner and start sparking. And you've got that happening at Shepherd Air Force Base. There's a lot of excitement there, but you need us to be playing a part in that. Well, what's really interesting is how great the state has been about investing in us. So if you've seen the cranes up in the air when you go down Midwestern, those are building a new building for the health sciences. So when you think about a discipline that really resonates on campus, it's the health sciences, where you have radiology, respiratory therapy, nursing, dentistry. You've just got a building that's also got social work, criminal justice in it, exercise physiology. It's going to be a beautiful new building that a lot of people will be surprised to see looks like our campus, but not identical to our campus.
Right.
So there's red brick, there's tile on the roof, but there's glass, there's some white that is more white than you see with red brick everywhere. And so it's just going to kind of blow out the corner that it's on. Moffett Library is undergoing a renovation, so it's going to be really pretty from inside. It's always been nice outside, but not inside. And we opened something really neat that this campus needed to have called a Lifelong Learning Center. There's a house on the corner of Hampstead and Glenwood, and that's going to help people 50 and older who want to come back and just teach each other, meet, and a few days a week have classes.
Student housing has
it's all taken care of right now. Yeah.
And I drive through the campus, and I go, man, I used to park there.
Yeah, the campus kind of tilts to the west. You got all these low buildings on Taft, and then you got skyscrapers in the west. But we are at 93% capacity for housing.
Wow.
So, just 2 years after building Legacy Hall, we're very close to needing another residence hall. But let me talk about downtown. So we think it would be exciting, and Will Kelty and I have had a lot of conversations about this. We think it'd be really exciting if some of our new residence halls were downtown and were partnerships with a profit agency like Will or someone else.
Right.
So the building that he's putting in above the Highlander across from Big Blue is going to be residential, and we have started a bus route. So when it's done, our college students could live there and without, any problem at all, get to campus.
Right.
The reason we think that's important, even though that might defer some profit that we could have on campus, first of all, we're pretty landlocked. But secondly, if you can get students living downtown and taking advantage of some of the excitement downtown, hopefully they'll start working downtown.
Right.
And then they'll stay in Wichita Falls. And downtown is really attractive to this generation of students. When you ask our students what they want that we don't have, football stadium and an active downtown. Mm-hmm. Isn't that amazing that this generation of students wants to go downtown? It
is. And I'll tell you, I grew up here. There was a time not that many years ago when you could have fired a cannon off down Scott Avenue on a Saturday afternoon
and not hit anybody,
and you wouldn't have hit a soul.
Yeah. Now you would.
Now, yeah. I mean, there's activity there on the weekends. Right. The activity during the week is incredible.
It's funny what a brewery or two can do.
I'm telling you.
Put a little beer somewhere, you get a lot of people. But there's a lot more than that downtown.
One of the first big projects down there was taking the old Holt Hotel and renovating it into these luxury apartments.
Yes.
There's a waiting list.
Yes, isn't that great?
Someone was telling me the other day that to get on the list, it was a 1-year minimum wait to get in there. Deposit up front, and you wait a year.
And now you've got restaurants,
Yeah.
And some retail is moving in. It's terrific. It is. So we're very excited.
It's going to be a great thing for the student body at Midwestern. And if we can get this this downtown housing done, I think that's a good thing for you. I think it's going to work out very, very well for you.
That's as far in the future as a football stadium, but you've got to be planning out 5-10 years.
Well, but you think about it. This is 2018.
Right.
2021, 2022, it's not that far away.
No, it's not.
It's really not. So what we're doing today
makes a difference.
What's going to be ready in 3 or 4 years, and then you look at the impact that's going to have 5 years after that, 10 years after that, 15 years after that.
Well, we moved here 3 years ago, and there was nothing downtown. I think that's what's fascinating about this city is that these are people, when they put their mind to something, they can make a transformation. It happens one building at a time.
It does. It
doesn't happen with $1 billion. Nobody has $1 billion. Right. You just got to do it one well-intentioned person at a time. And I'd say shout out to Will Kelty. You know, Michael, I know Michael's been here talking about his operation in tutoring and math and science. Mm-hmm. And so it takes a few people getting behind this. Henry Florsham has done a great job. You've got a great mayor doing this. And I think the Air Force Base is behind us. They want to see us do well.
Sure.
So I think there is a synergy occurring. I don't know if you know this, but a group of us meet once a month, city leaders, and there are about 7 of us at the table, and we just go around and talk about what needs to happen and what our role is in it.
Right.
Dusty Johnson is part of that. So the school superintendent, Michael Kurt, is part of it. It's just an important group to just talk about what we need to be doing.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's how it starts as an idea and grows from there. And you really can't get anything done until you start having the conversations. And clearly MSU has become a big part of the conversation.
We're trying.
And I know you are. I can see that. And I hope that the growth continues and that you continue to be a big part of the community. And more importantly, I want to see the community get more involved with MSU. You don't necessarily have to be a student there or have a student there to be a part of it.
Yeah, I see it differently than you, though. Everywhere I go, people come up to me, and it doesn't have to be in Wichita Falls, but everywhere I go, I sense tremendous loyalty here. Yeah. I think, like you, people are waiting for the next thing to happen and hoping that something, and they're so happy when something good happens for MSU or for this community. Yeah. And so they're waiting for that next big thing. And not everybody's going to like it if it's a stadium or if it's something else. We know that. Right. But they understand that there's going to be something they like and something good we're doing, and that's what we're supposed to be doing.
Amen to all of it. Dr. Suzanne Shipley, she is the president of Midwestern State University. And Suzanne, I want to thank you for being on the program and look forward to having you back in the future to talk about more of this stuff.
I feel like we just got started.
We did, but we're running out of time here, but we could go another half hour easily.
Yes.
So we will have you back here in the near future, and we'll talk about more of this stuff, and I hope you'll accept our invitation to be here.
Thank you for asking me. Happy to come.
Well, thank you, and thank you for your work and your dedication to MSU, Texas.
You bet.
We appreciate it. You've been listening to the Voice of Wichita Falls. Remember, you can see past and listen to past programs on our station's YouTube pages and listen every week for this program right here on this station and on this Town Square Media radio station website as well. We'll see you next week with more Voice of Wichita Falls. Have a great one.